You're listening to the Public Health Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this episode. I am excited that you're here. I genuinely am very happy that you decided to listen to this episode. Every time you tune in, or if this is the very first time for you, I don't take that lightly because you could have decided to bypass this or do anything else. So thank you for spending a few minutes with me on this episode. I'm your host. My name is Dr. Charlotte Huntley, and I'm a public health entrepreneur. I have well over 20 years of experience in healthcare and public health. And I've helped a lot of entrepreneurs along the way. Now, this podcast is focused on topics of interest for all public health professionals who are at this intersection of public health and entrepreneurship. I love using the podcast platform. I've been a podcaster since 2017. So this is an exciting new podcast that we're diving into. So again, I'm excited that you're here. One of the things that we're going to focus on as a recurring theme is helping you have this positive mindset, on this journey, which can be filled with feelings of isolation and more questions and answers and the uncertainty and the insecurities and all the things as you're stepping out there and spreading your wings and the fear of failure, the fear of success, all of that. So I share about that so you know what to watch out for, but I also like to give you some encouragement and some tactics and some tips for how to navigate, how to address this and how to keep a positive attitude and mindset. So we're going to talk a little bit on this episode today about kind of the things that I've done personally that I do that help me, and then things that have shared with others and kind of how I've seen it work for other people. So the first thing I'd like to talk to you about is really focusing on your purpose for whatever it is you decide to do. Remember, this is the business of your dreams. When we work a job, we have some parts that we like, some parts we get hired, we take that job, we do what we're supposed to do, and we leave. When we start a business, we get to decide what that looks like. Not that we love every part of what we do in the business, but we get to develop and cultivate that into the type of work that we want to do, the way we want to serve. And ultimately we have some goal in mind. We're all in public health, we're servants. So we want to help. We're helping in some way, but there's some change that we're wanting and that we're expecting, that we want to serve in a way that's going to have some sort of an impact to serve and touch on a certain community or an issue, but we have a goal. And keeping that in mind and staying focused on that can help you so much when it's time to really kick in and have that positive mindset when something doesn't go quite the way we expect it. Reminding yourself of that meaningful impact can help you when you're feeling, less than enthusiastic, because that's going to happen. You're not going to wake up every day, I get to start my business. Like, you may get to that point, and you may have a lot of days like that, but you're going to have those days where you're like, oh, what am I doing? If I told you how many times I thought, and I'm about to celebrate 7 years in business. So if I told you how many times I thought, oh, why don't I just go get a job and give up on all this? This is exhausting, or this is frustrating, or, those thoughts will pop up in your mind. Focusing and refocusing on your purpose can go such a long way. When things don't go the way you planned, you tried a program, you approached a prospect and they said no or not now, and you feel defeated, or things are just all sorts of, in between. When you refocus on your purpose, that can be okay. Sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes you need to step back a little bit. Maybe you take, change the environment. I have an office. This is our office in my home. I have an office downtown, in the center of the city and a block from the State House. Sometimes just being in that environment to work will energize me. It helps me reconnect with my purpose, and that's what I need. Sometimes I change the environment can help me to more easily reconnect with my purpose. And that's a great way to have that positive mindset, the things that you're going to have to do to reconnecting with your passion for improving the communities, the causes, whatever it is that is near and dear to your heart. Keeping that purpose in the forefront can really help motivate you and give you that sense of fulfillment, when times are challenging. Okay. Another thing that I like to do is, and you'll hear me say this a lot, I've listed a whole lot of tips before, but I will repeat this one because it's worth repeating. Celebrate your small wins. It's easy to celebrate the big win, but then we still will like be really quickly on to the next thing. But get into the habit of celebrating small wins, because the change, the purpose that you are setting out for, the big goal that you have in mind, can take a long time to accomplish. Even some of the projects that we're on can have, we work on, can take a long time to really see it come to pass. A perfect example is the podcast, this new one that I'm launching. It could take a long time to get to the point where I'm feeling like it's really hitting, making some traction. It's hitting, where I want it to hit, and it's helping in the way that I really want it to help. So celebrating those small wins is important, because it can help you recognize the progress that you're making, because sometimes that's hard for us to see. We're so caught up in what's missing, we're trying to get to, that we often can forget that we've made so much progress. So getting to the habit of celebrating the small wins can help you with seeing the progress, especially when the journey is long. Those incremental steps that you can celebrate. And it doesn't have to be like a full-blown party or, extravagant celebration, but that pause to acknowledge. A lot of times for most of us, it doesn't take that much as a celebration. It could sometimes be a simple pause and like, oh my gosh, that really happened. In fact, let me illustrate on that same example of, the podcast, on every episode. In fact, I'm going to have you hang on until the very end before I share this, but I'm going to share with you something in my example of celebrating. I'm not going to even call it a small win. I think it's a pretty significant win. So I'm going to hold on to the end and I'm going to share that with you, but celebrate the small wins. It's so important. And I even hesitate to call them small wins, but I need to do that because I need to put it into context. I'm not downplaying or watering down, because they're significant. But if you train yourself, you get in that habit of doing that, it will help you see your progress, which will then help you reconnect more quickly to your purpose and helping. It's kind of like a self-soothing, like a little baby, what they do. And I'm in that baby phase right now. I have grandchildren. I spend a lot of time with my granddaughter, and she self-soothes by sucking her thumb. Or actually, it's one of her fingers. It's not her thumb, but that's how she self-soothes. So it kind of reminded me of that. Like, we have to get in a habit of how we can course correct and replenish our own, take a deep breath. And we may not have somebody right there to help us with this, but we need to get into the habit of celebrating these small wins and how we can, pump ourselves up when we need to keep going. Okay. And I'll give you one more. I think I'm the ultimate cheerleader. So if you ever feel like you're feeling a little down or discouraged, pop on into this podcast and listen to some of these episodes, because you'll get a lot of that, because that's just comes very naturally to me. So one more thing I'll say is to stay informed, of what's going on around you. This is about, we need to stay on top of things. We're entrepreneurs, we're leading the way, we're on with our purpose. We've got to do these things. We need to stay informed of topics that are, happening. And across public health, things are always shifting and changing. Things are happening quickly. And then you think of all the other industries and all the stuff that it seems like everything is in a fast pace. So stay informed, but also I want you to manage information overload, because that's real. I don't care what other people may think, but you need to filter what is coming in so that you can manage that information overload. You do not have to be exactly top of mind of everything that's happening everywhere in public health. We have people that kind of own their niche areas, and we can get a, Cliff Notes, if you know about Cliff Notes, but we don't have to be the top of mind about everything. But in our area, if our need, we decide what that looks like, but just manage the information overload. That can be so overwhelming, because what also will happen is then you quickly start to beat yourself up for not keeping up and what you don't know and what you're missing. And that's just a vicious cycle that I don't want anyone to get caught up in. So stay informed, but manage information overload. And you have to decide what those boundaries look like for you. Stay updated on the latest developments in public health. Be mindful of information overload. Don't forget that. But that constant exposure to negative news, overwhelming data can just simply be draining. I have filters about what I even have in my feed for social media because of that. I spend very limited amount of time when I pop in and I want to engage or I want to catch up with what's happening. So I'm very careful about and very aware of what I'm going to follow and what I'm going to look for, because I want to manage what's in that feed. So that was just a social media example, but it could be maybe you subscribe to a lot of newsletters and you have to manage what's coming through. So And what you allow to filter through in this stage of your journey, you may decide you have to filter it out on the next leg or phase of the journey. But just work to manage that information overload, because that can be extremely draining. You could be connected to your purpose and you could be celebrating your small wins, and you could do all these things to keep yourself pumped up. And then this one thing with this information overload can just suck the life out of you and drain you right back down. So just be very careful and very aware, mindful of that. Okay, I think that implementing some of these things can help you to nurture that positive mindset. It doesn't mean that every day is sunny and you're always going to be smiling, because that's not normal. It's normal to have these, different emotions. And I'm not a therapist, and I'm not trying to be a therapist here. I'm really encouraging you to put some of these in practice so that you can have when you get knocked down or you get shuffled around or things, you ebb and flow, that you can come out of this with a more positive outlook and maintain and kind of protect and preserve your positive outlook, your choice to, be more positive and keep the positive mindset. That's going to serve you really well on this entrepreneurial journey. All right. Now, as we wrap up, I want to first remind you of our mastermind program, because if you're listening to this episode as it's being released, then you have time to apply for our mastermind group program, which is phenomenal. It is an incredible opportunity to be in proximity with other public health entrepreneurs, to share thought leadership, to support one another for accountability, for personal and professional development. It's amazing. We meet and engage virtually, and we meet in person. We have a 2-day retreat that happens twice a year. And we've had people come in from all over the United States and the UK and Guam. It's been fantastic. So if it's something that you're even curious about, I encourage you to explore at our website, which is publichealthentrepreneurs.com. Click on Mastermind, and all of the information is there for you to at least be able to decide if you want to apply. So you'll need to apply in order to meet with me and my team and to get all of your questions answered before it's time for enrollment. We want to make sure that it's a good mutual fit. So please check that out if you are so inspired or curious. And then also, I would love for you to help us share this podcast. I and my team and I work really hard to get it started, to get these episodes out twice a week, which is almost insanity by itself. But there's a lot of information. And sometimes when you find something like this on a topic, and for a niche, public health entrepreneurs is super niche, there's this kind of, hopefully it's binge worthy, but there's this need to kind of jump into a lot and catch up. So there's a lot of things we wanted to be able to provide and share. And since we've been podcasting for a long time, we had the systems in place to be able to keep a schedule like this. But you helping us to share the word and growing the podcast is key to keeping this going and sustaining. So please help us share the podcast. You can share directly from the app that you're listening in right now. You can share on our website with a friend, publichealthentrepreneurs.com. And then also by writing a favorable review in Apple Podcasts. So a few minutes ago, I said, I'm going to save something to the end and share with you. So right now, I'm going to demonstrate what I just talked about in sharing. I'm going to call it a small win. It's not small, it's huge to us, but this is what I mean by that habit of celebrating. Because like I said, podcasting takes a very long time to kind of maybe get the return on your investment of time and effort and money to put the show together. But, I'm asking you to write favorable reviews if you're enjoying this podcast. And I'm going to read to you a review that we have in the podcast, our first review, and we are genuinely excited. If you're watching this video, there's no faking the enthusiasm. I'm kind of holding back a little bit because I geeked out and screamed and got all excited. So our listener wrote, just what I've been looking for. I was like, yes. As a newly graduated Master of Public Health, this podcast is just what I've been looking for in guiding me to find my niche in public health field, specifically One Health. Thank you, Dr. Huntley. Well, thank you. I'm not going to mess up your name. It's a beautiful name and I don't want to mess it up, but you know who you are. Thank you so much for this review. You have made my day as well as my team members, and this is me celebrating a win. So I've been asking since we started, and we finally have our first review of the podcast. So thank you so much. And for the rest of you who've been thinking about it and forgetting about it or hadn't done it yet, if you are enjoying the podcast, please, in Apple Podcasts, write a favorable review. This just makes our day. This fuels us to continue to do what we do and to maintain this positive mindset, as I've been sharing with you on this particular episode. Whatever way that you choose to do so, just your action to helping us share this podcast and spreading the word about it is greatly appreciated. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Visit publichealthentrepreneurs.com to learn more.